welcome back to the Faithful Growth Show, where we explore how faith and career intersect. Today, I am honored to be joined by Stephanie McLeod Estevez. Stephanie is a licensed clinical professional counselor who specializes in art therapy. She's a published author, she runs her own Substack, and she has her own radio show. I'm sure Stephanie's going to share a lot more about everything that she is doing in her fabulous life. Join me in welcoming Stephanie.
Thank you so much, Donna, for having me on today. It's such a pleasure to spend this time with you talking about how faith and purpose and work blend together. I think it actually creates a lot of soulfulness in our life. So it's a great honor to be on.
Great. Well, we are going to go ahead and jump right in. I will
Okay.
ask you to share about your professional journey.
Sure. So I've been an art therapist for almost 21 years now. And I would say that, but I've been, I was raised Catholic, and I remember some of my favorite aspects of that religion were the Ten Commandments and to love thy neighbor. And so I was a very sensitive child and like always concerned about the well-being of others. And I remember very early in life, being really worried for homeless people and wanting to solve those problems, etc. And so while I've only been an art therapist for 21 years, like in many regards, I feel like I have thought about how to serve and how to be um, having a sense of purpose in my life since I was really, really young. And my career began. I pursued art therapy because I realized after my mother passed away from breast cancer that one of the hardest emotions to deal with in life is grief. And, often we're not given a lot of time, or the expectation is that, you kind of move on after a while. And I've seen some lovely TED Talks that actually, I think, more poignantly say that you never really move on. You learn how to live with grief. And so for
Right.
me, art therapy became a vehicle for expression that could help you express those things that are difficult to put into words. So, so I went through my training and then I practiced for a number of years as a traditional therapist specializing in art therapy. And then after my own breast cancer journey, I began to really see how my personal lived experience could inform my work.
Mm.
And so therefore, like while I've always enjoyed my career, I feel like that brought back in this like deeper spiritual resonance of like, why am I here on earth? And so I felt like I figured it out after my own cancer journey. And that is why I started writing and doing most recently the radio show, because I want to just help people live better lives and feel more resilient and more capable of surfing the ups and downs. That's a little
Well,
bit
thank
about me.
you. I appreciate you sharing that. You made some great points. Myself, I've been through a couple of different religions. You said that you
Yes.
were raised Catholic, and I'm sure that has been a while since you've probably practiced that, but there are
Yes,
still things that have stuck with you,
exactly.
and they're still influencing what you do today. Can you share a bit about
Absolutely.
your radio show? You do art therapy actually over the radio. And so if you could just
Yes.
share what listeners might experience through your radio show and any response or feedback that you received from it.
Yeah, if some of the people who watch the show are familiar with Bob Ross, the
Mhm.
guy who used to do art on PBS, some of
Yeah.
my listeners have said, "You're the Bob Ross of art on the radio," which is such a huge compliment. But essentially, so my show is based in the premise that our curiosity and our creativity can really open us up to understanding ourselves better. Each week, I delve into a different theme that many of us experienced before. Most recently, I did a show on the human shadow, which are those parts of ourselves that we find difficult to accept. And and then so the first half of the show, I just give my kind of a blend of lived experience with professional expertise to help listeners understand, like, why is this important and what is it and how might it show up in your life. And then I always, of course, talk a little bit about art therapy because many people have never tried it before. And so I want to put them at ease. And then the second half of the show, often it's a guided meditation related to whatever the theme is of the week, so that people, again, are invited to go inside and reflect about how that theme has shown up in their own lives. And then they use their art, whether it's in their head or actually on paper, because not everybody can stop to paint or draw,
Right.
to imagine how they could reflect what they experienced throughout the show using their imagination and creativity. Art therapy has been shown to really help the unconscious mind connect with the conscious mind. And I think about, well, at this time, I don't have like a formal religious
Mm.
practice. I think about how things like meditation and prayer and speaking your whatever challenges you're going through out loud, right, can often invite in information or awareness or new ideas. And so art kind of functions in a similar way.
Mhm.
It's just a visual representation. And then often you get like these juicy aha moments, and then that could feel really good, and then you can incorporate whatever the lessons are or whatever the guidance is into your life, which is wonderful.
Exciting. Yeah, I
Yes.
like what you were saying about how things like meditation and prayer, even if you are not practicing any religion today, there is
Yes.
still a faith aspect in that, being that your faith really tunes into your belief systems. And
Yes.
so, belief system, we have many different religions around the world and different
Mhm.
practices, but it's what is your belief system and how does that influence the work that you do every day? So, in
Yes.
practicing art therapy and sharing that with your listeners, you are helping them, regardless of their religion, tune into their belief system and use that as a tool to move forward.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And I think about, again, because I've long been this like sensitive person who's really cared about the well being of others, I think that faith and love can really help you find purpose in your daily life, but also in your work life and how you approach your work life. What I love about what I'm doing now is I feel like I get to incorporate all these parts of myself from very early on in my life to who I am today. And I get to play with that on the radio or in my writing or in my one on one work with clients. And I think I just feel really blessed as a result.
That's a blessing in and of itself, is just to
Yes.
feel blessed in what you're sharing and your ability, like I said, to bring your whole self to your work,
Mhm.
to see that as a blessing over your life is beautiful. Tell
Yeah.
me, what advice would you give to other women who are wanting to bring their faith or even their whole self into their professional lives more openly?
Yeah. I think it all comes from the heart, right? Whether it's faith or religion or a deep value system that you believe in. I think the more that we can just not feel like we have to live separate lives depending
Mhm.
on where we're at. And maybe it has to be more subtle if the environment is not quite as accepting. But what I have found is that the more integrated I feel about all these parts of myself, whether it's trying to make a decision or how am I going to approach a problem or how am I going to bring up a tough conversation, I think like having that courage to speak your truth and to approach it from how can we make this best for all involved
Right.
is, I think it is something that we can really bring in, and that can bring a lot of joy into our lives and into our work life. And I've like I think about all the little work experiences I've had, from like cafes and sandwich shops to renting movies back in the day when you had to go buy, rent a movie, a VHS tape. And I tell this to clients all the time. I brought myself and I learned something from every position. And I feel like that's similar to a spiritual path, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you come in and you're curious and you want to learn how to do something well, there's that process of inquiry and, ooh, how can I just make this as enjoyable as possible? And for me, that's always trying to do work well, whether it's customer service or,
hmm
you know, something not so customer service
Right.
facing.
Yeah, absolutely. Regardless of what experiences you have had in life, just
Yeah.
being able to say, what am I taking away from this?
Yeah.
Which gets to the premise of faithful growth. If you have that mindset and that approach to your journey, right, you allow faith to lead the way and it
Yeah.
focuses on positives of any experience, whether it is a truly positive experience or something that may be viewed in a negative light. It's like, okay, what am I going through this experience for? Why did you take me
Right.
here? And how does that inform how I move forward? Great. Oh, yes, thank you.
That's such a good point, Donna, because the more I do that, the more happy I feel in
hmm
my environment. And there was something that you just mentioned. I was like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't really do a good job remembering what I said.
No, you're good. If I think of it, I will say it.
Yeah.
Anywho, yeah.
And so, looking to your future, tell me a little bit about the legacy you hope to leave behind.
That's great because you know what? I just remembered what I was going to say. Okay.
Okay.
I think that we can have goals in our
Mm,
lives, right? Like some of them are personal, maybe health related, others are career focused or aspirational. And in the beginning of trying to take my career from a traditional therapy practice towards evolving and wanting to do more speaking, do more writing, get a book published, there were times in which I put so much pressure on myself that it's not that it harmed me, but it certainly made it more stressful. And I think there were some limitations because I wasn't coming from a place of trust.
mm,
And as I've practiced listening to my intuition and believing and having the faith and courage to trust the process, trust the evolution. It's not that it's laid every opportunity in my lap, but I have found my way. And so I also feel faith and these practices of being curious about our challenges in our life and what lessons are they trying to teach us really enrich how we do the work. And it can take you from a place of maybe feeling disempowered to more empowered thinking this way.
wow. That's a
That's,
powerful statement in and of itself. Is utilizing that trust as a source of empowerment. I
yeah,
appreciate everything that you have shared today. Lots of great nuggets that hopefully
thank
our
you.
listeners will be able to learn from your journey or even empathize in some of your experiences. Before
Thank
we
you.
wrap up, I would like for
Yes.
you just to share the things that you are working on now, share about, your radio show and any other business endeavors. And be sure to share how our viewers can connect with you or support your work.
Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, so that kind of goes back a little bit to legacy, right? And I think about once I went through cancer myself. And so I felt like art therapy has been a deep practice. It's helped me in so many different ways. And then I realized, oh my goodness, like there's so much emotional components to cancer and that I didn't want to live in a place of fear. And so, yeah, I think the legacy that I wish to leave behind is eventually to have my art therapy for breast cancer book published. So that has been a goal that I've been working on. I talk about that in my Substack. It's a free newsletter about art therapy. I give people updates on that. But each month, so my Substack does a couple of different things. There's a monthly art therapy newsletter, and similar to my radio show, I choose a focus and I provide people with a free art therapy guidebook. Also, you get so the lovely thing about my radio show is it's on a local nonprofit radio station
Mhm.
by the University of Southern Maine. And so while you can stream that live, if you sign up for my Substack, you also get the weekly podcast because I'm
Okay.
able to take that same show and package it for my Substack. And I do
Absolutely.
offer coaching services.
I
Yeah.
absolutely appreciate you sharing. I thank you for your time. I also believe that there's an opportunity to learn from those who are either walking through the journey that we're walking through now or have been there.
Yes.
I appreciate you sharing your journey. I appreciate you
Thank you.
sharing your insights with our listeners. It's very inspiring to hear how faith has guided your life and can guide every aspect of our lives. No, but not just our lives as women, but also
Yeah.
our careers. Because as
Yeah.
women, I think that we can be more emotional beings, if I can say that
Yes.
about us in a positive manner. I
Yes.
believe that we all have special qualities that we bring to this earth.
Yeah.
I tune in to my qualities and encourage other women to lean into what has been placed in you to provide to this earth. So Stephanie, I really
Yeah.
enjoyed our
Yeah.
conversation today. And for our listeners, don't forget to like and to subscribe so that as we bring more journeys of professional women, you're the first to find out. So stay tuned for additional content and lessons from remarkable women of faith like Stephanie. Be sure to connect with Stephanie at StephanieMcLeodEstevez.com so you can continue to learn more about her work and support her journey. Thank you.
Thank you.